Today there was jubilations in the country's power sector as News Engineering completed the construction of 2x60 MVA 132-33 kVA substation at Kukwaba, Abuja, and a 132 kV line bay extension at Katampe, Abuja as contracted by the Transmission Company of Nigeria, TCN. Nigeria's leading indigenous electrical company, News Engineering, has completed the statewide rural electrification project in Cross River State. Speaking at the launch today, the CEO expresses his delight and confidence in the nation's power sector as it continues to partner with indigenous electrical companies in its advancements towards development.
News Engineering has been described as Nigeria's leading electrical construction company. With its headquarters in the federal capital, it boasts of being a major contributor to Nigeria's grid expansion and is aiming to lead the transition to a greener future. But how did it all begin for Nigeria's leading electrical industry powerhouse?
First of all, my husband was a God chaser. He was a devout Christian, a lover of God and man. He was a good husbandman as well, and a lovely father to our children, both biological and adopted children. He was the man of the people. He was loved everywhere. He was a very generous man, and he is a go-getter, very hard-working man, and a very serious entrepreneur. So this describes him in a nutshell. He has one principle that that would take a lot of time for every one of us to forget. He always believes that hard work never kills. So that all his life he lived a life of hard work. Whatever he wants to do, he puts all his energy into it. So he believes that hard work won't kill you, it will rather produce results.
Born on April 1958 in Umuahia South local government area of Abia State, Sir Oji Mado would go on to attend the Ubakala Central School, but the death of his father would see him unable to finish his primary education. In the 80s, apprenticeship was an integral part of the traditional education system in many Nigerian communities. Skills were passed down from one generation to another through hands-on training and mentorship to young individuals eager to learn. Sir Ojimadu was one of those young men developing an interest in trade as an electrician.
Sir Cyprian Ojimadu Weze of blessed memory. He said, our relationship supersedes that of a friend. We are just like brothers. When he was alive, he regards me as a senior brother. He regards me as an uncle. And he regards me as my younger brother. And also a very, very close ally.
He was a very interesting character, and he came across as someone who, initially I wondered about him. I said, how come this guy is doing well in the power sector? And then when I interacted with him, Sawens is a boisterous, or was a very boisterous gentleman, very sharp. He had all the senses. He had the intellectual capacity, he had the street sense, and he had the business acumen, all combined in this one person. And he was an extremely generous human being.
There's no state in this Nigeria we cannot the government or notable individuals cannot tell you that they know about news engineering.
I knew him fairly well because of two most important things. There is an uncle of mine called Alhaji Muhammad King who lived here, and he's like an uncle to me because he's one of my colleagues' father. So that is how I come to know your daddy, through this. He was my wife's uncle, and he introduced him to me, and since then the relationship became very cordial because of the chief's relationship with my wife's uncle. So we have come a long way. I have known him for quite some time as a very hard-working person who is really committed, especially to the development of power in all over the country, but more importantly when he was here in Minna.
In 1983, after the completion of his apprenticeship, Sir Oji Mado registered his business enterprise with the name Mweze Electrical Works and Supplies, with one vision: to attain the status of a truly indigenous engineering service on the global level.
I joined the company in year 2000. The company was still young then, in Minna, Niger State, and from what I came to meet, it was more or less a one-man business, very enterprising one-man business. It's like the man was everything and everything to himself. So when I came into the company in the year 2000, I met a few engineers, about 3 or 4. That was in year 2000. And most of the work that the company was doing then in the field of electrical engineering was pole wiring. We plant these poles in local urban areas, in rural areas. Before you knew it, as far back as year 2000, the company was already embarking on what you call statewide electrification, rural electrification in Niger State, reaching to the far corners of the state, and excellent work. I remember that I came in as a kind of auditor cum accountant to look at works that had been done, and I marveled. I marveled because you went to very far distance. Niger State is a very large area. You traveled to hundreds of kilometers, and you see these poles have been stretched out up to where you call, Kontagora and beyond, from Minna and southwards, westwards, like that. So all over the state, the work had been done. So in that state, the #1 electrical company was already News Engineering as far back as then.
The vision is that news engineering will be one of the, electrical engineering, giants in the country. And that is why he never have an abandoned project, to the best of my knowledge. There's no project they say this project is abandoned. Even though if that contract had not been fully paid, he will source his fund to complete it.
You would rather finish your work, and in most cases you finish your work before he asks you for the money, except for like pure government contracts, where you need to be mobilized. Otherwise, you will use money from his pocket. I'm telling you, and finish the work before you think of paying him. You wouldn't miss those 3 things in him. And I guess that is what endeared him to many other people in the state, government agencies, big corporates, big corporate businesses and the rest of them. They started hiring the company for contracts. That was in Mina. So you see, those beginnings, I guess the first major job I was aware of after joining the company came about in far away Ebonyi State. You know, that kind of thing, far away Ebonyi State. Then the work the company had done inside Niger State recommended it to other states. So we now won what you call a statewide rural electrification project in Ebonyi State. South, east, west, senatorial zones, wherever, we became completely in.
As the country developed in infrastructure, it was more and more obvious the gap between indigenous electrical companies and their foreign competitors. It was this gap that Sir Oji Mado and News Engineering set out to fill.
When I started with News Engineering, the organizational culture was built around hard work, ready to succeed any day, anytime.
Let me tell you some of his mantras, his motto, that if you entered News Engineering, it entered you. He said, hard work does not kill. So true. Hard work does not kill. That gives you an idea of the culture of work. Not just working, with excellence. I will remember that if Sir Oji Mado got to a place where they have planted these poles, I learned that from him. I'm not an engineer, but I learned that. He stood at the beginning, so you could see straight line of poles. If anyone was bent like this, you were in trouble. So it was excellence, you understand?
Going back to the power sector, it's like going back 23 years or more. I had two forays in the power sector. The first foray was as chairman of the technical board, and the second was as Minister of Power and Steel. So as chairman of the technical board, we had a responsibility of increasing output, generation output. At that time, a target was set by President Obasanjo at the time for 4,000 megawatts. In fact, what had happened was that there was a total blackout in Nigeria. And the president was very upset because there was no light in Nigeria for about 6 days. And he fired the management of the technical board and of management of NEPA and set up a technical board which I chaired. And of course, he gave us a target to move from 1,600 megawatts to 4,000 megawatts in 18 months. So we had 18 months of sleepless nights, and thankfully, with the support of some key players in the industry, including News Engineering, we were able to achieve the target of 4,000 megawatts by December of 2001. And then I left office again, and in 2003, Obasanjo reappointed me, this time as a minister. Previously, I was special advisor, and we had garnered a bit of experience and knowledge on the demands of the Nigerian power sector, and at that point in time, we understood the need to increase output across the board. So we went on and embarked on a project which was the National Integrated Power Project, NIPP. And NIPP is a project which we started under what we call the Niger Delta Power Holding Company, because it was about increasing generation output, transmission output, and of course ensuring that distribution capacity could carry the new outputs. That investment started, but I left office to become governor. Today, I was telling someone, I think yesterday or 2 days ago, that just jokingly that projects are being commissioned and they're called NIPP projects, and nobody remembers where they started. And that all these projects were actually started by that administration.
The ways and manner in which Sir Ojimado executed projects would endure him to his customers. His commitment to excellence and accountability would always ensure that they returned.
I think my experience with news engineering, first as chairman of the technical board and then of course as Minister of Power and Steel, was such that we had a company here that was focused, that was competitive, and had a lot of integrity. But more importantly was its capacity to execute projects on schedule and ensure completion. And the quality that was required was always met by news engineering. So a company like that, obviously, was one of the few indigenous companies that had invested significantly in building its capacity. So when I became governor of Cross River State, and news engineering offered to participate in a bidding process for some of the schemes that we embarked on as a government, I had no hesitation in ensuring that they also competed. As it were, in the state, as governor, I had come up with a blueprint, let me call it that, which we wanted to execute. And one of our targets was to ensure that we electrify our rural communities. So we wanted to extend electricity to about 100 rural communities. Ultimately, I think 200 and something odd rural communities were not electrified. And so our target was, let's get to about 80% electrification of Cross River State. And so to be able to achieve that, it meant you needed to look for the best hands in the industry. And of course, you know, putting out projects in rural communities, of course, at that level and at that speed needed, you know, those who really could do it hands-on. So, you know, I had a challenge at the time where, you know, there are a lot of rural electrification contractors, and everybody was saying, well, let's use this for patronage. Let's give it out as patronage to these contractors. And I said, no, I can't take the risk of not making sure that these projects are delivered on schedule and that quality is critical for rural electrification. Because if you have poor quality rural electrification projects, they become extremely difficult to maintain. So we engaged two companies, Lilicare Brothers and News Engineering, to execute basically about 90% of all the rural electrification projects across the entire state. And of course, Lilicare Brothers was an indigenous company, but with foreign participation, whereas News Engineering was a 100% indigenous company. And those are two companies that we found had capacity, and we were not disappointed by News Engineering. They did a fantastic job, and those communities continue to benefit from access to electricity.
Despite Sir Ojimadu's excellence and the ushering in of a new era of growth at News Engineering, the challenges persisted. But as the challenges persisted, so did Sir Ojimado and his team, traveling and working day and night to execute projects and deliver on the good word of News Engineering. Sir Ojimado's Mweze Electrical Work and Supplies became News Engineering Nigeria Limited, and its growth was exponential.
I do very much remember News Engineering because as young people growing up in Minna then, he was very sociable, a very likable personality. And I'm not saying this because he's not around, but this is coming from the very bottom of my heart. Somebody very likable, somebody easily approachable, and a great socialite. I think that was one of the things that made him, stand out, because he easily associated, and he was such an infectious character, because once you met him, you couldn't help but like him, because like a gadfly, you can be rest assured you will continue to meet again, and he was always keeping in touch. Now, like I said, that I believe opened a lot of doors for a very young and upcoming businessman at that time. Niger State, of course, being new also at that time, lots and lots of opportunities for business to grow. And like I said, given his personality, it wasn't too difficult for him to make a lot of inroads into Niger State. And therefore that I believe accounted for why he rapidly succeeded in the manner that he did, because he was terribly hardworking, very, very hardworking. And like I must say, also very, very generous, if you like, generous to a fault. As you would expect, being such a social person, a likable personality, it wasn't easy, too difficult for him to make a huge success of his business. And to be honest with you, Niger State must have equally benefited from his enterprise, because then we had a lot of rural electrification projects to be done in a fast developing state at that time. And News Engineering found it very easy to relate with the Rural Electrification Board then, where I believe he must have made quite a lot of impact in the development, especially the rural development of Niger State.
Sir O.G. Madu's entrepreneurial vision ensured that he began to expand the company beyond the shores of Niger State. Preceded by a reputation of excellence, he was awarded contracts from various administrations in Sokoto, Kwara, Kebbi, Ebonyi, Enugu, and others, News Engineering under. Sir O.G. Madu's leadership was slowly establishing itself as Nigeria's top indigenous electrical company. The Nigerian National Integrated Power Project was conceived in 2004 when Olusegun Obasanjo was the president of the federal government of Nigeria, formed to address the issues of insufficient electric power generation and excessive gas flaring from the oil exploration in the Niger Delta region.
I'd like to just let you know that I worked in NEPA, and that's the National Electric Power Authority. It was remodeled to become PACN, Power Holding Company of Nigeria, during the intervention by His Excellency Distinguished Senator Leale Moke as chairman of the technical board. I grew up to the position of General Manager Audits, and during my time, we won the national award from ICPC 3 consecutive years as those who ran the best anti-corruption agency in Nigeria. And I was the lead those period.
2003, Obasanjo reappointed me, this time as a minister. Previously I was special advisor. And we had garnered a bit of experience and knowledge on the demands of the Nigerian power sector. And at that point in time, we understood the need to increase output across the board. So we went on and embarked on a project which was the National Integrated Power Project, NIPP. And NIPP is a project which we started under what we call the Niger Delta Power Holding Company, because it was about increasing generation output, transmission output, and of course, ensuring that distribution capacity could carry the new outputs. That investment started, but I left office to become governor.
Now, why did you have to create a company like that? After all, you had NEPA and PACN. You had NEPA and PACN, but they are civil service organizations. All right? And the way they do their work, they are filled with bureaucratic bottlenecks, red tapeism, slow to act, less accountability. I told you how to be the anti-corruption agents, so we wanted, those who designed it wanted a company that would be completely private sector led, so that all bureaucracies would be taken away, corruption would be zero, and delivery will be very, very fast.
Unfortunately, there was an investigation that delayed the execution of the projects during the Yar'Adua administration, delayed their projects for more than 2 or 3 years and increased the cost. But at the end of the investigation, after wasted time and resources, everybody returned back to the NIPP projects and continued from where they stopped. And like I said, News Engineering also was part of those projects. And so we're grateful that the projects are being completed. Other people are taking credit for them, but at least let the projects be completed to serve the country, yes.
Information reaching us about a tragedy in the Federal Capital Territory. A plane with the ADC Airlines has just crashed in the Tunga Madaki village, 2 kilometers from the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, shortly after takeoff on its way to Sokoto State. Eyewitnesses account that the aircraft was engulfed with fire shortly after takeoff and exploded into a huge ball of fire before crashing into the ground. Among the fatalities on board was the CEO of News Engineering Limited, Sir Ojemadu Waeze.
Trying to think about an English word that best described how I felt. I can't think of any, but I knew I was devastated. I just got a call from Sokoto, which was his destination, that the plane hasn't landed. Normally, it didn't make sense to me because I felt, okay, if they haven't landed, it means they haven't taken off. So I told the lady that called, I said, maybe they are still at the airport. She said, no, that they said the plane has taken off, but they haven't landed. So on hearing that, I said, wait a minute, what's going on? I now called his phone, and what I heard is the number you are calling cannot be reached at the moment. And do you know that up till now, that ringtone still torments me. Each time I hear it, my heart will start panting. So I had to drive myself to the airport. I actually called his driver to ask if he was there to witness the plane take off. So he said yes, he was there, that the plane has taken off. I now knew that there was something wrong. So I told the driver to come take me to the airport. But the state of my mind couldn't give me enough patience to wait for the driver to come. So I now drove myself to the airport. I can't remember the speed at which I was going, but my sisters that was with me in the car said I should take it easy, that do I want to kill myself before I get to the airport. So my response was, at this moment, I don't care whether I get to the airport or not. So then we continued. I almost ran into a trailer, but then at that point I now matched the brake with force. I got a call that just made it very clear that there was a plane crash. So at that moment I parked the car at the center of the road where I heard the news and ran into the bush. I was told that I started eating grasses. I don't know how long that took place. And then I was there running inside the bush along the airport road. One man, he witnessed what was going on, came after me and held me. He brought me back to the road and started talking to me and was saying, you are a Christian, are you not a Christian? Why are you giving up so soon? Can't you see that ambulances are passing by, that the crash happened actually inside the airport, so that there are survivors? Why can't I just pray that my husband should be one of them? So at that moment I started praying. I said, yes, he is not dead, he's alive. He said, no, put yourself together and pray. I will stand with you in prayer. We started praying, and he collected my phones and called the last person I spoke to, who happened to be my husband's driver, and told him to come at the airport road immediately. So he waited, he was there with me until my husband's driver came, And then he gave him instruction to take me to the airport and take me back to the house. So he came and took me to the airport. There was no useful information regarding the plane crash. All that we were told is that survivors have been taken to the hospitals. So we started going, visiting the hospitals, looking, no. There was a lot of confusion. I went to most hospitals in Abuja, no information about him. Went to Gwagwalada, no information about him, in the night. So I had to quietly go back. I went back to my house. It was now dawned on me that he was not among the living. And then my life changed. My status changed. Everything about me changed. I became miserable. And that's the word? That's the way I felt. Sad, miserable. I became hopeless. That continued for many years. It took a lot of time for me to recover myself back.
Sir O.G. Madu's demise had left a gaping hole in the company's structure, and a shadow of uncertainty had begun to hover around News Engineering. A new leader was needed to take the reins and continue the legacy that Sir O.G. Madu had begun. And amidst the mourning, his wife, Lady Josephine, was to become the new CEO of News Engineering Limited, Nigeria.
I wasn't really prepared for that assignment. It wasn't my intention to be the MD. I didn't have any dream, no motive to be the MD of News. But then a day came, the management staff came to the house and they said to me, "Madam, you are the boss we now know. You have to wipe your eyes and take up this responsibility. What we're assuring you is that we're going to stand by you. But you need to be strong. We are here to encourage you and to tell you that the way we had worked with our former MD, we're going to work with you. But you need to wipe your tears." So when they left, I started reasoning, what are we going to do? Where am I going to start from? So honestly, I didn't know where to start from. It took time for me to brace up to the responsibility. So on assumption of duty as the second managing director of News Engineering, the immediate challenge I had was the completion of the projects, ongoing projects, that payments had been made. So I couldn't tell where I know. So I had to request for reports from project managers to be able to know where to start from. So it wasn't easy getting funds to continue with the projects. The banks were not forthcoming because they all knew what had happened. They felt you're a woman, you won't be able to continue with the responsibilities required, to move this company forward. Most of the banks we had relationships with even refused to release the APG, advance payment. This is money that is paid to the company for a project. So what was their reason? That they are not sure that I have the capacity to continue with the project. That way, they refuse to release the funds. And the banks, you can't even go to any bank to give you money, to do your project. The banks were not forthcoming. And the clients are there putting pressure, we have paid for this. When is the project going to continue? When are you going to finish the project? So the situation then was, it was too terrible for me. It was very, very challenging for me.
Lady Josephine's consistency, resilience, hope, and trust in God made her overcome adversity and take leadership of the legacy company. For her first act, she had to learn how to be a CEO and lead a company all by herself. Lady Josephine enrolled in the Harvard Business School.
What I did was to enroll myself in Lagos Business School. I had to start working on my networking as well. I met a couple of good people, accomplished business men and women. So I started building my contacts and my networks. And then I also went through Harvard Business School and some other business schools across the globe.
So the MD has done so much to revitalize this company, innovate it and expand it. Anybody that was here 20 years ago won't believe it's the same company. You won't believe it's the same company because even the complex where we are sitting in now, this modern office complex is what you should thank the MD for, because nobody thought of something like this. We were staying out there at Dawaki. I don't know whether anybody, but look at this modern edifice, all by her effort.
Lady Josephine continued to reinvigorate the company's structure, instituting a new board and appointing new members of management.
In order to give the company a new lease of life, she established a very reputable board of directors with eminent personalities, ex-governors, powerful people in the board who were to stand as advisors. Like she knows that she cannot do everything all by herself, so she needed advice too. So she set up a board of advisors under the chairmanship of General Duba, and you had prominent people like to tell you how wise she was, the managing director of NEPA, Engineer Joseph Majoku, that famous engineer, was on our board, and many other prominent people. So she was guided.
News engineering, for the period my husband managed it, we didn't have any technical board. So that was among the first thing I did, to set up a board. And then we appointed General Garuba Duba as our board chairman. And then we also had to put in place a consultant. And I consult widely. So those are the few things that were able to help. The board had always been there to offer their technical advice and direction towards way forward. And then the consultants is always there to give their own advice. So it wasn't just about me. At that point in time, I had to rely on a lot of people, technical people. So I hardly take any decision on my own without consulting widely. So those things I did and put in place went a long way in helping us to stabilize the turbulent experience we had then.
On completion of her course at the Harvard Business School, Lady Josephine resumed office as the new CEO of News Engineering Nigeria Limited, and she decided it was time to look to the new generation, appointing an executive director and director of operations who incorporated new ideas that set news engineering on the path for a sustainable future.
So it was one phone call. I remember I was in the corridor of news engineering and my mom, the MD, news engineering, Lady Josephine, called me and she said, I'm thinking of a role to give you. And I said, well, I can work as a PRO officer or something. I'm not one to always want to overemphasize on what I need to be doing. But she said, no, I don't think you should be doing that. I'm going to make you the executive director. I've never heard of anything like that before. So I didn't even know what the job description was at the time, but I knew that it was something that I was going to be stepping into. I think it took a lot of trust for her to give me that position. I had just finished school. I was currently doing my NYSC. I studied international business. I worked with my father for many years. Would I say that I was very prepared for the role? From an experience point of view, no. But from being in the field with my dad, learning from my mom as well, I think that her decision shows continuity. because the MD brought my mom on board, and now my mom became the MD. So I could also understand her decision to make me the executive director. One that I am still very grateful, because I think that it set the path for where I am today. A lot of the things that I have learned in management, a lot of the things that I have learned in life, I have learned from my mother. I'm able to excel at the work that I do today, handling the type of clients that we handle today, because she paved that way for me as the executive director of News Engineering. So I am grateful.
I am part and parcel of News Engineering, a company which he chaired, a company which he trusted on me and requested me to be the chairman, which I gladly accepted. So I'm so happy to be part of that.
As new CEO, Lady Josephine faced different challenges as the company charted a new course.
One of the immediate challenges I faced was the ultimatum given to me by all my staff. When this incident happened, they all came together to request that I terminate the appointment of one of the staff that worked closely with my husband, and they gave me a condition that is either I terminate his appointment or all of them will resign. So it was a very difficult thing for me to do at that point in time. I didn't see the reason why they wanted him to go, but I weighed my options and felt that it is better to lose one person than all the staff. Because of, having to go through so many things almost at the same time, so the depression, was deep. I was into depression for many years. I stopped praying, stopped going to church. I can't understand why, my husband would die when we were doing 70 years prayers. So there are so many things that didn't make sense to me then. We were doing 70 years prayers, and then that was when the plane had to crash. So, I lost interest in so many things. So, it wasn't easy. And contract too, they were not paying. There were so many things. I have to think of where will I get money to pay workers, so many things. So one day I had an appointment with a governor that was owing us, and he actually told me to come, So because the state of my mind was not right, I forgot the appointment. So it was now when he called and said, "Madam, I'm waiting for you. We're supposed to meet by 7 o'clock. I'm still waiting for you." I now said, "Oh my God." I now quickly wore my dress. I wore my trouser and a top. Lo and behold, I didn't know I was wearing my top at the back. So I went, and then I had the meeting with the governor. And as I was talking, he was relating, at least he has seen that I was wearing my dress at the back. He really understood that this woman had been through a lot. So he didn't have any choice than to assure me that as soon as he gets back to his state, that he was going to pay me. And he kept to his word. But the thing is, he didn't know how to handle it. I didn't know up until this meeting lasted close to 1 hour. We were talking. He kept asking me questions, and then I kept answering. I didn't know that he was trying to find a way to tell me that I'm wearing my clothes at the back. So eventually, I said, "Madam, from here, where are you going? Where else are you going?" He said, "I'm not going anywhere. I'm going straight to my house." He said, "Do you know why I'm asking?" I said, "No, sir. I don't know." He said, "You are wearing your dress at the back." Oh my God. When he said this, I felt as if the ground would open for me to go in. he saw what I was battling with. He just left me his parlor and left. So for me to gather myself together to walk from his parlor to the car was a Herculean task for me. I felt so ashamed of myself. I didn't know what to do. So I just had to manage. And then I went back. I entered my car and went back to my house. So there is this friend of this governor that got the appointment for me. I now called him. I said, did your friend tell you anything? He said, anything like what? I said, are you sure he didn't tell you anything? He said he hasn't told him anything. Even at that point, I was so ashamed, to tell him that I wore my dress at the back to go and meet a governor. So he noticed that I was struggling to say something, but it wasn't easy for me to speak. He said, okay, what is it? Tell me. Did you do anything? Tell me what it is. So I said, I wore my clothes at the back. So he was silent. Then the next minute, he said, come off it, it's nothing. Come off it, it's nothing. But he tried to make me feel as if nothing has happened. But do you know that I kept that blouse, up till today. I couldn't wear it again, but I just kept it as a souvenir or whatever it is. Anytime I see that blouse, I will remember the day I wore my clothes at the back.
Nigeria's House of Representatives has opened a probe into allegations of former President Olusegun Obasanjo's spending in the power sector. In a bid to address Nigeria's intractable power crisis, former President Olusegun Obasanjo committed about $16 billion to the sector during his 8-year tenure. The administration had targeted a goal of 10,000 megawatts of electricity by the end of its tenure in 2007.
While they were looking for $16 billion US dollars, what was actually spent on the power sector was about $2.6 billion. But they were looking for $16 billion US dollars. Quite frankly, I don't know where the other balance it was. And I never saw a report where they say, okay, these were the components of the units that made up the $16 billion US dollars.
The federal government landed a probe, power probe. That was just after Oga's demise. And can you imagine that?
Well, I know, for instance, that at the utmost, the monies that were spent was about $2.8 billion to $3 billion. Why did I say 2.8 to $3 billion? It was because when I took over, like I told you, one of the things, based on my own background, I wrote a letter to the Accountant General of the Federation asking them to please, because they kept the records. The company was not fully established. I came into the company in 2006, okay? November 2006. Obasanjo left in 2007. But I wrote, as one of my due diligence, to say, please, before I take over, let me know exactly what I am taking over. How much truly had you paid out? And I had my accounts people also give me their own records. When we did the reconciliation, that's what the figure I'm giving you now, 2.8 billion US dollars. But the Accountant General gave us a higher figure because there was some amount of money that a lower figure because there was some amount of money that we had okayed for payment, which they had not paid before the cancellation, the stoppage of funds flow. Do you understand? And so when they were looking for $16 billion, I have this document with me, saying that this is the total value of the money in the contracts that were raised. And of course, when they were finally some sensible people in the National Assembly, the probe were made multifaceted. House of Rep probed, Senate probed, joint committees of the Senate and House of Rep probed, EFCC probed, ICPC probed, everybody probed, the public probed on social media and all that kind of thing. But meanwhile, I had this document. And I keep on asking them, please, where is this other balance? If we have this other balance, we can do great things for Nigeria. But there was no other balance.
You know that the normal thing in Nigeria is at the end of every tenure, there is always, people will start writing petitions. They want to probe the outgone governor. And as they are probing the governors, they are also probing the contractors, you know, that the governor used to do some projects. So the company were also being probed. You know, people wrote petitions concerning all the places we worked. They wrote petitions concerning Niger State. They wrote petitions concerning Sokoto State and the Ebonyi State. And that was about the period EFCC was, you know, came into being newly. And their office was in Lagos. They didn't have any office in Abuja. So I was actually going to EFCC in Lagos every week. If this week I'll go for Ebonyi, next week I'll go for Sokoto, another week I'll go for Niger. So I started going on weekly basis, and it was not easy. Going to EFCC is a full day work. So if you enter their office by 9 o'clock, from that 9 o'clock you write statements from that 9 till evening, you know. So a particular day came, I said I was hungry, I want to go and eat, and the person taking my statement said that they have to give me people to accompany me to go and eat, you know. So I refused. I said, okay, I brought myself here, so there was no need for anybody to follow me to go and eat. Eventually, I went and ate and then came back. And then I continued writing the statement up until the time I was very tired. Remember that this thing happened when I was mourning. So I was actually going to EFCC with black mourning clothes. So I will write this thing from morning till night. So after the first week, then next week I'll go for another state. Then another day I will go for another state. So we kept doing it like this up until one day I was there till 9 in the evening writing statement. So I didn't know that they planned to keep me that day. So the boss now came and said, Madam, I'm afraid you may have to be our guest today. I didn't panic. I've seen it also. Sleeping there wouldn't have made any difference. So when he saw my reaction, he now said, okay, they may have to release me based on self-recognition. But I will still have to come back next week to get somebody to bail me, you know. And then they gave me all those conditions.
The advent of the global financial crisis in 2009, however, strained the consolidated gains made in the sector. The country's growth rate declined from 6.5% in 2008 to 4% in 2009. There was a significant decline in oil revenue, leading to revenue attrition for all tiers of government, reduced capital inflows in the economy, substantial decline in stock market capitalization and share prices, huge losses on margin loans and share-backed facilities, and a continuous change of government personnel. A wave of foreign electrical companies flooded the Nigerian market, creating a new block of competition for news engineering. Unfazed, Lady Josephine drew strength from her new management corps and championed the cause for the future of news engineering through commitment and, like her husband, sheer perseverance.
Nobody listened or adhered to the advice. And so when eventually the project was now being reinstated, don't forget, we've gone through this like 3 years or 2.5 years of stoppage. Consequences arose. And so Nigeria was now, and taxpayers' money was now necessarily being committed to settle the consequence of that delay for nearly all the contracts. Generation contracts, distribution, all of them. But however, what we now did was to put in place a more organized strategy. Thank God we had Yaradua who came and begin to put things right. By the time Yaradua came, having resolved those ones I just told you that we resolved, the issue of the legitimacy of the funding and acceptability by all stakeholders, we also did another thing. We now did an evaluation of what it will take to really finish the project. The project, which was 7 medium-sized power plants, had become 10. And of course, that 10 also now had additional transmission projects, gas projects, distribution projects, because if you don't do those things, you will just have power and it will not flow. So the project was now totaling like 8.4 billion US dollars. Now, how were they, you know what I mean? How were they, what is the delineation of this $8.4 billion? $4.4 billion was spent on power generation. About $2 billion was spent for transmission. About 1.7 was spent for distribution. And about 0.7 was spent for gas infrastructure and gas transportation to the power plants. So if you add up together, you're looking at about a figure of 8.4 billion US dollars. Do you understand? Okay. Now, an additional essence of proof for the efficacy of the project, one is that when the probe finished and we are now allowed to do our work, we delivered 6 of the power plants.
After the first chief operating officer resigned because he looked into the company financials and saw that the company was highly indebted to banks, so I had to start scouting for another one. The second person I got gave me, an impossible condition that because of his so many years as an engineer, that I have to pay him as an expatriate. I didn't have many options. I agreed to all his terms. So I rented a duplex for him, bought a new Prado Jeep for him. A day came, we were invited for a meeting. The meeting was held at the villa with the vice president. So they wanted to know the projects, ongoing projects in Nigeria, so they were able to identify abandoned projects and if there are challenges, how they can come in to ensure that those projects were completed. Like 5 minutes to the time we're supposed to give our own report, the man told me, Madam, that he wasn't going to give this report. I actually thought he was joking. I said, why? He said that he's not fully prepared. So what am I going to do at that point? To leave when all the camera was focused on us? So I quickly collected the reports from him. I didn't know what happened, but there were no questions. Nobody asked questions. The vice president didn't ask questions. Normally for the previous people that had reported, they usually harass them, but I noticed that nobody asked any question. So they now said next. So I now, I was now relaxed. So after the meeting, this same man that couldn't give the report now requested I should hand him over the file. So I told him, you know what? From here, just go back to your house. That was how I terminated his appointment. So it's actually, sustaining this legacy is not even easy for trained engineers, not to talk of someone that doesn't have any engineering background.
Can you imagine that? A power probe that everybody in the country also thought would sink the company. Well, but we went to the probe and came out clean.
That probe, again, was meaningless because you are dealing with me, okay? And what was it all about? They thought we sold the properties to people at prices that were below the value.
Determined to rise stronger, Lady Josephine initiated a diversification process and set out on a journey to secure various new foreign partnerships for the company.
Due to the rising challenges, it became apparent that we couldn't do it alone. So it was important to start seeking partnerships, both home and abroad, To start, we started to rebrand the company to communicate better our capacity, our values, and our goals. And it was also important for us to put a face to the brand. So we ensured that Lady Josephine Weze participated in global events that affects the industry. Recently, there's a lot of conversations around leveraging opportunities, business opportunities in Africa, and it's important for us to be part of that conversation.
For decades, News has been known for building substations of different capacities, doing a lot of rural electrifications. We had worked in many states in Nigeria. We have known to be installing a streetlight projects, build distribution, doing tower projects. But recently, we're also a major player in the renewable energy space. We had actually constructed quite a handful of mini grids. The pilot project of Ministry of Power was awarded to News Engineering, and that's to construct 60 kilowatts mini grid at Sokoto to Rankawa. And due to the quality of that project, we were given a repeat procurement to do a similar project at Kuchi. They are both running effectively well. And we're also doing a lot of projects for World Bank. We are involved in their performance-based grant and output-based grant. We have a handful of projects in Niger State. We have about 6 ongoing mini grids of various sizes. So renewable is where we are now, and I'm happy to, say that this is not a major area, but because of the need of the hour, we have also developed expertise in this area.
So there's been a global push for sustainable development and greener energy generation. And this has caused companies like News Engineering to invest a lot into both manufacturing and training. A lot of our staff are being trained to learn this new technology, how to manufacture it, how to deploy it on site, how to repair it. As we're moving from the conventional system to a greener system, News Engineering also has to play its part in this transition.
For the future, the goal is to transition News Engineering from a primarily government-focused business to one that embraces the private sector. So that's why we have diversified our portfolio to include real estate, trainings and consulting, and to offer more technical services. We've also gone into providing cleaner and greener energy in the power sector.
At the center of everything that we do at News Engineering is learning. We want to ensure that we're equipping the next generation with everything that they need to succeed. We do this through different initiatives, through scholarship program, through our CSR program. We also train youths in every site that we go to ensure that they can maintain a lot of the infrastructure that's been built. News Engineering, we also want to ensure that within our staff, they are being equipped with productivity tools, they are learning about AI, they are getting to play around with technologies that are universally at the cutting edge of things, to ensure that Nigeria or this sector doesn't get left behind. We're constantly pushing our research and development division to come up with new ideas to solve a lot of our pressing problems, whether it's for the grid as a whole or our business strategy problems.
Like we all know, the future of power industry lies in renewable energy. The campaign today is to avoid what has been eroding, affecting the climate. The climate change we see today, a lot of the contribution comes from power industry as a result of using fossil fuel for generating power. And because the entire world is looking into the aspect of renewable energy, News Engineering, who believes in training, which was one of the dreams of our founding father, he gave us opportunity to be trained. Somebody like me, I went to Germany, I went to Czech Republic, and here in Nigeria, we have been embarking on series of training. We've given opportunity. And so we have equipped ourselves to compete favorably in this dimension of this industry. And to think about that, the first pilot project of solar mini grid constructed by Minister of Power, Federal Minister of Power, was handled by News Engineering. We were given that opportunity. We competed with others, but we won. And because of the good job we did, we were given opportunity to construct another 60 kilowatts solar hybrid power projects in Kuchi, Niger State. And as we speak, we have a couple of them that are ongoing. And so the future lies in greener energy. And we have positioned ourselves to do that. We are looking beyond the shore of this country. There are a couple of projects that we wanted to embark upon in some of African countries before now, but due to one thing or the other, we were unable to carry out those projects. But we have positioned ourselves better to compete favorably in such country. And this is where the future of news engineering lies. We're looking beyond the shore of this country.
For news engineering, the vision for the future is big and it is bold. Committed to pushing the boundaries of what is possible and leveraging a solid expertise in electrical engineering to shape a future where renewable energy sources are seamlessly integrated into the daily lives of Nigerians, powering sustainable cities and driving economic growth. Together, we can embark on a mission to revolutionize energy generation, distribution, and consumption. Our team of brilliant engineers and innovators is dedicated to developing cutting-edge technologies that will make renewable energy accessible, affordable, and efficient for all.
I think she has done very well, and I think she is doing very well also to keep the name, to keep the legacy of her late husband. She has always been along with him, so she knows how he went about doing that job, and she learned a lot from him personally. A lot of people with whom he interacted with know her very well, and they respect her. So I think she has what it takes to succeed and to move the company forward.
No company is without its own, both the founder and those who have kept the company up to today. The founder, late Ojimadu, a good friend, person that we know very well, and he built this company. But I think the greatest compliment we can give tonight is to the Lady Wenze, who despite the setback of the loss of her husband and the founder of the company, continued and kept this company growing to this stage that it is today, and being able to do 40 years. Usually, as we know, in a I would say gender-biased country like we have, she is in a sector that is male-dominated. She is also in a sector that nobody will want. That competition is very, very intense, and she has made us proud. This company, News Engineering, has made us proud. For those of us from Abia State, those of us from the Southeast, those of us from Nigeria, we commend this company because it has maintained international standards, has been able to do its own work to the satisfaction of all its clients, including those of us who do the oversight functions in the National Assembly. So kudos to News Engineering.
I know that as devastating as it was for the family, which was very young at the time, his wife, managed to take over the company and continue to build on it. And that was something that I admired, and I was surprised at how she could sustain you know, the gains of the first MD, her late husband. And so for me, I saw Lady Nweze now coming in as MD, CEO of News Engineering. No engineering capacity like some of us, but at the same time, determination to sustain the legacy of her husband and the company in particular. So I must give credit to her. She's actually achieved that and sustained that legacy and built an enviable entity in news engineering. Congratulations.
She's just an amazing soul. And I'm so glad she's taken over the mantle. And it's doing very well. And that is why we're actually going to be celebrating the news, you know, because the other option was for it to die, right? So, but the fact that it's now moving and going on and we're celebrating it, we owe her a huge appreciation. A big thank you for doing that and continuing the mantle. And she's such a beautiful person.
My advice to companies that wants to aspire or succeed or celebrate long-term success is for them to believe in themselves. They should not allow anybody to define them. They should not be discouraged because nothing good comes easy. Challenges always comes, but always believe that you can't give up. Giving up should not be in your dictionary, and you need to be resilient. So with all this, committed to what you do, be hardworking. With all this, you will get to your final destination.
News engineering, continue to do your work well, continue to follow your values of honesty, trustworthiness, integrity, competence, and doing your work excellently. Tomorrow for you is greater. Yes, the next 40 years you will celebrate.
I will want to congratulate you, Madam, and then to pay tribute to your late husband for his foresight and for his ability to establish one of the finest indigenous power company in the country, and people should emulate him to be able to. If we have people like him, maybe the problem of power in this country would have been much easier than what is currently happening now. So for his 40th anniversary, right? I want to seize the opportunity to urge you and everybody who worked along with him to continue to emulate him so that you move the company forward. I pray and hope that even in his grave, he will be very proud of what you are achieving, and you have what it takes to move the company forward. And I want to pray for you and to congratulate you for the good job that you have done. You keep it up.
You know, 40 is a huge milestone for an engineering company like the News especially. You know, for them to have gone through so much, because they have gone through so much, to get to this stage. I think the entire team of News, from the gateman all the way to the top, should be commended. You know, they've maintained themselves, they've kept themselves the way they should be. Their times have been difficult, but they weathered the storm. You know, so I think for me, it is a huge celebration for them. It's their success as well. So for me, I want to congratulate each and every one of them. And then for the leadership, I mean, they're on point, because without those from the gardener down, you know, you don't have anything, you know. But to be led by incredible people as well, then you have everything. So everybody, congratulations. I look forward to 40 more years, God willing. And I'm praying that the company continues to wax stronger. And I'm praying that they get the recognition that they deserve from every sector, including the government, private, everything, because you are a worthy company to be with.
I'd like to use this medium to congratulate News Engineering family, the staff, I'd like to say thank you. Thank you for the last 40 years. The last 40 years haven't been the greatest. We've had challenges, we've had storms, we've gone through so many things together, but we're where we are today. And today is a day of celebration. So I want to say a huge thank you to you for standing with us in the last 40 years. Whether you came in and you gave 5 years, 10 years, 2 years, 40 years, whatever it is that you did in the last 40 years is commendable. And I say thank you very much to each and every one of the staff who has done exceptionally well in the last 40 years. I'd like to say congratulations to my boss, MD, News Engineering. But I would like to speak to you today as my mother. Thank you so much for standing in and standing strong. Thank you so much for not giving up. Thank you so much for steering the ship. Thank you so much for showing us what leadership is. But most importantly, thank you so much for showing us what sacrifice is. We have learned sacrifice. You've given yourself. You have dropped everything for this cause. And we are where we are today because of what God has done through you for us. Myself, the rest of my siblings, the staff who are here to celebrate 40 years, we are deeply grateful to you. So thank you so much, Mommy, for everything that you have done in place of our Father. May God continue to bless you. May God continue to reward you. And I pray that you reap the fruits of every single labor. I pray that God blesses you with joy and replaces every tear with a smile on your face for the rest of your life. Thank you. Many people do not know what the last 40 years have been. These videos that we've done has not really captured everything that you have gone through since Daddy passed. Those of us who know, we know. We can only attempt to tell the story, but today we are reminded that God stood with us and God stood by you. So thank you. This congratulations is not just to my boss, but this congratulations is to my mother. You're an exceptional woman. Congratulations. Happy 40.